Good afternoon and good evening, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment of Council of the Ones, Babylon 5 review. And I, of course, am your host, the Ambassador, and I have with me my fellow council member, my good friend. You know him, you love him, Mountains of Elysium. And to everybody that's out there watching live, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on YouTube, good to have you all here with us as we continue our review of Season 5 of Babylon 5. And today we'll be giving our thoughts on the episode Strange Relations. But as always, if this is your first visit to the Ambassadorial Wing and you enjoy the stream this afternoon, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell so that you will be notified whenever we go live with our weekly reviews of Babylon 5. And Elysium, good to see you, bud. How you been?
Good to be here, and like I was mentioning to you before the chat, if I'm cutting out or that, apologies. I thought I'd sorted out my internet, but it needs as much coffee as I do.
We all could use more coffee. Believe me, if there was a way that we could have it hooked up intravenously, I would do it. So, and shout out to the chat to all the familiar faces.
2 coffee machines at this stage.
Yes. So, and shout out to the chat to all the familiar faces. Archer, Colin, it's good to see you, bud. And I'll bring up your comment here real quick. Strange Relations, Deadly Relations. I wonder if the title of this episode inspired Peter David the naming of the second Psycor trilogy book. While I am not as familiar with the Babylon 5 novels as some of my fellow council members are, it is an interesting theory. So maybe Elysium, you can elaborate on that just a little bit. What do you think? Is there any validity to Colin's comment?
I wish I had been able to read any of the Babylon 5 books, but I've never been able to read any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I defer to Colin's expertise in this one.
Okay. All right. So, and of course, with council member Fiona Wolf absent and everything, she was kind enough to record her thoughts and shoot that memory crystal over to the AW headquarters, and we've got it loaded up for you all. So, Councilmember Koj is in transit for work, so unfortunately he will not be here today, and we're not sure where Zod Rider's at, but as always, we wish him well. We hope he's doing okay, and hope he catches this on the replay. And Zod, if you do catch us on the replay, our friend, we miss you, and we hope you're doing well. So, anyway, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and queue up Fiona Wolf's video, and we'll give that a listen, and then we will, as always, go from there. So just bear with me for just a moment as I get this put together here, and here we go. All right, Fiona, Councilman Fiona, the floor is yours.
Here he is to ruin our day. Oh no, Mr. Bester is back. Ah, yes. Honestly, I think a rivalry between him and Lyta could have carried the latter half of season 5. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Byron. It's just in comparison to Lockley, I don't think you got as much development as you needed. I think Lyta could have basically taken part of your storyline, and more people would have cared a little bit more about that angle via her than through you. But I think it also helped the fact that Lockley did get some additional time in Crusade, and also with, I think, the River of Souls. And she was also in the segment in Lost Tales with the priest, which I should rewatch that at some point. But yes, here we are. Strange Relations and a Byron out of time. but overall, how it opens, so Delenn and Lockley are kind of doing the very polite womanly thing, and honestly, yeah, it was a narrative trick to kind of get Lockley in like Flynn to at least where she has some establishment with one of the main characters, but I do wonder if they could have used a slightly different angle. Like maybe they were rivals in their military school training, or they could have even gone the route where, say, Lockley could have had some ties with one of the other characters in a different fashion. You just never know. It's all like a what if scenario, but all things considered, Delenn takes it pretty well, and Lockley is like, well, now that he got that out of the way, like, okay, we're on this kind of square with each other. But somehow Babylon 5 has all those awkward kind of elevator conversations. Veer and Jakar and Londo. Delenn gets to join everybody with the weird awkwardness in the elevators. Zach Allen had his weird conversation with Lyta in there. Garibaldi had his weird conversations with Talia in the elevators. Oh man, those elevators on Babylon 5 are cursed. One even sent Garibaldi to that sector that shall not be mentioned on this station. And of course, Londo has certain kinds of misgivings about, because the regent is ill. Excuse me, the regent is ill, and he has a very bad feeling about becoming the emperor. Oh, how right you are, Londo. You're about to be a big old puppet. But you'll have a surprising bodyguard later on. Oh, and one more thing about elevators. Man, Ivanova coming out of the elevator with the whole Drazi party. So many elevator moments. Yeah. And you know what? I think Lyta knew she could get away with taking some supplies from MedLab, considering Franklin's sympathies and how he was the ringleader of the station when it came to the Underground Railroad. Oh man. But yeah, Lyta's just like, I'll take some of this and some of that. And then you have Franklin like, what's happening here? I see. But then again, Franklin also did operate his own medical clinic in the down below area well beforehand, So, Franklin is a little bit of a rebel in his own way. So he basically donated the materials to Lyta so she could help patch up Byron's group. It's just, you really get to see in season 5 like just how much these characters have developed a rapport with each other for the most part. But then of course they sense a ripple. It's like, oh no, the Psycorp Bloodhound units and a certain Mr. Bester have arrived. Yep, that's always gonna lead to fun and basically bad scenarios for the station. Usually anytime Bester visits, there's both a silver lining, and then it's like more oopsie daisy for the station. Oh man. But that's the kind of villain Bester is. He's the pure instigator, and one could say pure malice too. And of course, this doesn't go unnoticed by a certain Mr. Garibaldi, and of course, that causes him to butt heads with Lockley again. And I totally get it. It's a way to make sure that Lockley doesn't come off as, like, I guess, beloved by all or instantly accepted. They basically created this hurdle between her and Garibaldi and also to contrast with how much she and Garibaldi are pretty alike. They're both can be very gruff when they need to be, both very blunt, and they don't give up. They have a lot of tenacity. And you know what? It is rather telling of Lockley's overall morals and personality when she gives Bester a clean slate, even though the rest of the command staff knows what he's up up to and what he's really about. But it says a lot more about Lockley. Like, she's willing to give people a chance until they give her a reason not to. And yeah, that says a lot about her inner fortitude, you know? Because that's pretty hard to do, because a lot of times you will make a whole lot of assumptions based on who you trust, and their opinion will carry a lot more weight with you. So Lockley is trying to be even keeled, but then again, she also figures out at the end, like, oh man, Garibaldi is definitely not to be trusted. Oh wait, not Garibaldi, Bester. But then again, Lockley also doesn't really trust Garibaldi because she does know of his alcoholic problem, if I remember correctly. But yeah, forgive that faux pas. It's basically, yeah, Bester wastes his goodwill with Lockley. So he ends up driving another stake into another station commander. And then there's going to be some reverse juju later where that stake is going to come after Mr. Bester. Yes, I am inferring to the expanded universe set up there. Yep. Go read those books. They're fun. But I do like the fact that this episode does go into the Garibaldi versus Lockley dynamic. And Lockley does explain why she does give Bester a chance, because Bester did help track down a rogue telepath. And basically that rogue telepath had killed a few of Lockley's people. So Lockley is willing to give the benefit, not quite the benefit of the doubt, but, she's trying to be polite to Bester, because Bester did do a decent thing in the past, but just kind of like how the path to hell is paved with good intentions, Bester himself, when it comes to interacting with anyone, he's ultimately looking out for how can he protect the poor and how can he protect himself. Sometimes those two things come into conflict, but Bester usually finds some sort of mental gymnastics to get around that, so he can remain devoted to Psycor. I guess the other big highlight for me for this episode is how Delenn is concerned over Malari's safety, and Jakar agrees to this, and he proposes that they need a bodyguard, someone they can trust. And Delenn's like, we trust Jakar, and he doesn't like the idea, but he's convinced because it would be very symbolic. And it turns out very good for Malari in most events, because Jakar is just that on the ball. I mean, because he's already coming into the Centauri area with the right mindset, like there's something happening around every corner. And it turns out Jakar is right for all the right reasons and all the wrong reasons too, because of the Drock element that Malaria will find sooner rather than later on his home planet. Yeah. And I do find it interesting that Lockley did find a way out of the situation by using a technicality, the 60-day quarantine period. But that means it's just a countdown to the inevitable, where Bester will be back and be like, okay, your time's up. You got to come with me. Pony up now, people. But all that stuff is just really leading into the eventual telepath war. Like, oh, God. But you just realize just how much they're even allowing for the groundwork in Season 5 for the stuff that would have probably been developed over time with Crusade. But yeah, this episode, even though it has a couple of moving parts, it really is building up towards the whole Centauri versus Drock angle, and just how much they're going to be put to the test, and how much they can keep friendships going in spite of the machinations of the Allies of the Shadows. Because the Vorlon and Shadow issues haven't quite resolved themselves. They still have a lot of toys left in the playground, much to the problems and eventual situations that'll develop with the younger races. Luckily, we do happen to get far enough into the future to where we'll become first ones. But today is not that day. Today they have to handle Mr. Bester. But it does come around to one last thing. The title of the episode is pretty on point. Strange Relations. Jakar becomes the bodyguard of Londo. Mr. Garibaldi finds out why Lockley is okay to tolerating Bester. Mr. Garibaldi also finds out the strange relations between John Sheridan and Lockley. Delenn strangely has to bear some relations between Sheridan and Lockley. So yeah, there you go. That's my last bit of puns for the day. Zooty zoot zoot, everyone.
Oh. And as always, council member Fiona Wolf, you did a bang up job. Expected no less. And everybody, if you are not subscribed to Fiona Wolf's channel, Elysium was good enough to include the link to her channel in the chat. So go over, check out her stuff. She does a lot of different, she has her finger in a lot of different pies, as she likes to say. So, but yeah, you know, I could not have said it better myself.
Yes.
So, Elysium,
Indeed.
your thoughts on Fiona's commentary on this episode?
He's pretty much covered most things on it and covered them rather well. And yeah, I think it was fun finding out that Lockley was married to Sheridan, and the number of strange relations throughout Jakar and Londo practically becoming a couple themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think I was joking about it last week, but I think this is one time that I'm not in favor that 3 is a sacred number with Lockley, Sheridan, and herself. It's one she's probably not too fond of.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, for those of us that have had to deal with exes when we're with somebody new, it's never an easy thing. But you put on top of the fact that the 3 individuals involved, Sheridan, Lockley, and Delenn, one's the president of the International Alliance, one's the head of the Rangers, and the other one is the head of Babylon 5. You dump interpersonal relationships on top of a power dynamic, an administrative power dynamic, and it just creates all sorts of complications. Let's just be candid here. And it can, as the title entails, create many strange relations.
Yep. Come to think of it, you've got 3 of the most powerful people in the entire galaxy,
and they were all
in that strange relation.
Yeah, and 2 of them are currently married, and 2 of them were formerly married. And you know, I'll say this about Lockley's comments on her and Sheridan's relationship. And she was like, we were both fresh out of officer school. She's like, we were both madly in love, and we both fell quickly out of love because we realized we both wanted to be in charge, and we couldn't share the authority. And that unfortunately is true, because you have to sometimes take a more backseat role at points in a relationship. And when you've got 2 people who are very command oriented, like Sheridan and Lockley, it's going to be difficult for them to try and share or take a step back and let the other person lead when you are in when you have such an authoritative mindset. And I think the interesting thing is how amicable Delenn is towards Lockley. And she comes to understand that there isn't any type of feelings between John and Lockley anymore. But she's still, it was a shock, and justifiably so. You're with somebody, you figure, okay, we're together now. I know pretty much everything about them. They know everything about me. And then poof, you've got this little this little surprise pop up out of the middle of nowhere, quite literally. So it can be taxing on a relationship. I think Delenn and Sheridan handled it relatively well, and obviously they're able to move forward without any lasting complications between the three of them. So, but I want to ask you this
I am
question.
thinking of funny.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Elysium. Go ahead.
No, I think actually in a funny way, the fact that he didn't, I was just thought of it since last week. I said it's so out of character for Sheridan not to be 100% truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably was a stronger point in his favor now that I thought about it, because he thought so little about what that relationship was that it didn't even cross mention it to the length. He went, "Oh crap, I didn't tell her."
Yeah,
and so it just shows that he has absolutely not even a candle for her. Nothing in his mind thought of her in any way other than the best person for the job.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Lockley said it very succinctly. We were together for 3 months, and that was it. They had exactly as long a marriage as I did to my first wife. That just was a different. Our separation and everything was a completely different dynamic altogether. But you're right, because if you think about it, you don't think about, oh, I used to be married to this person. You're thinking, no, I want the best person for this job, and Lockley was the best person for the job. Now, I will say this. While I understood, and I kind of want to transition to the whole issue with Garibaldi and Bester, Lockley is the person on the outside of this whole situation. She's read the records, but she doesn't know all the details. And when Garibaldi comes in to her office and he goes to attack Bester, I'm like, go get him. Rip his throat out. Although technically we find out later he can't, because Mr. Bester just likes to screw with people's lives and screw with people's heads, and it's a terrible, awful thing. And I understand where Lockley is coming from in terms of her reaction to what Garibaldi does, but at the same time, she doesn't know everything, and she does understand where he's coming from. And she's like, but I have to abide by the code of conduct. I have to be amicable to him until he does something that I don't care for. And as Fiona said, he's a scumbag. Alfred Bester is a scumbag. So even though he did something that could be perceived as amicable and helpful, at the same time, we know him for what he is. He's a user. He's an abuser. And he will screw over his own family to get ahead. And that's why we detest him as much as we do. I mean, there's pretty much a we hate Alfred Bester fan club, and all of us have a member card because he is just simply not a nice guy.
So I will agree that Bester deserved to have Garibaldi unfettered in a room with a baseball bat. But I 100% agree how Lockley behaved. Even with your worst enemy, you treat them with respect, give them nothing to use against you, because there's a chance, slim, 1 in a million, maybe less of a chance than that Dumb and Dumber Floyd had with Mary, even less. But you should still, with respect, use the law. If she can pin something on Bester, then, as Sheridan says, no, not throw him into the brig, throw him under it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Just attacking him without he really didn't have cause. Well, there was cause what Bester had done, but nothing that could be proved or used in court. This strengthens Bester's position oily little weasel like him that kind of ammunition, because he looked like a cat who got the cream when Garibaldi came in to attack him.
Oh yeah, definitely. And to the chat, Jeff B. Jeff, good to see you. Appreciate you coming by. And yeah, I would say this is one of Walter Koenig's best roles, aside from Pavel Chekhov. I loved him as Pavel Chekhov. Yeah, this was by far one of his best performances. And you have to admire the performance on Koenig's part, because he plays such an amicable and a very likable character in the character of Pavel Chekhov in Star Trek, and then he just flips the switch and he just turns into a complete and total jerkwater like Bester in this show. And and especially in this episode, he's playing everybody, or at least he's trying to play everybody. But the problem is everybody's wise to his game, so unfortunately he can't do as much nasty underhand stuff as he could in the past, because everybody's wise to him now. So he can only play by the rules. And I have to say this in regards to a comment that Fiona made. While I like the character of Byron, he is an interesting character. I think a more centralized rivalry between Lyta and Bester might have served that particular storyline better. Again, I don't dislike the character of Byron or anything, but there's enough history between Lyta and Bester that they could have just focused on the two of them and her being kind of the watchdog for the rogue telepaths there on the station. So, okay, let me check. Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, Elysium. Yeah, I saw your message. Yeah, absolutely, go for it.
And
Mhm.
I was just saying that, yes, I think Byron, she was right. Byron did not have enough time. I know the character of Byron is a bit Marmite. I pendulum on Byron. I've gone from thinking he's one of the best characters on Babylon 5 to absolutely thinking he is still a good character, but one of the most evil characters in Babylon 5. I swing between the two because I've been in a situation like at the time when I saw Babylon 5 first, I felt like the telepaths on the run. I had no friends. There was a very bad family situation. My parents were, well, on the way to dying, shall we say. My dad had terminal cancer.
Yeah.
And, well, I was I've been bullied, getting over a lot of stuff. So I said, wow, there's somebody who will look out for you no matter what. That sounds like a place that you're welcome, just for being. Wow, what a place. And then as I started gaining strength in myself and believing, getting over that, I just saw how much that's a cult. He's pulled so many people in and he's dangerous. So again, me going from one extreme to the other. So Byron could have been an absolutely brilliant character. I just don't think he had the time. There wasn't enough time given to him.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'll say this: Robin Aiken Downs is a good actor. He has the skill to do a good performance, but at the same time, he didn't get enough time with his character. We didn't get enough time with his character to really get a good sense of just how complex of a character he is. Because let's be honest, Byron is a very complex, a very layered character in the show. And I think if maybe we had more time with him, just like if we'd had more time with Lockley, we might have been able to have a better appreciation and a deeper appreciation for the various perspectives of their characters. The interesting thing with this episode is, of course, we have an attempt on Londo's life. And we can probably infer that this is one of two groups that are going after Londo. It is either higher ups in the Centauri government that don't want Londo coming back home to be emperor, or it's the Drakh trying to accelerate things and go after Londo and just take him out all at once. But when that doesn't work, they go the long route and they make him suffer. So, Elysium, your thoughts on that? Who do you think? Who do they say categorically who committed the?
No, as far as I know, they don't. But I felt it could have Rifa's people, because I do know Rifa's people are still there, even though, from what I understand, just going through, I'll have to go through it. I think it's in the Babylon wiki somewhere, that Londo, like with when he had that duel with the Lord Shano, I think.
Lord Kiro, the eye.
Yeah, no, he was. He had his friend in a duel into his house. It was in season 2 or 3. He was the guy who was Jacob Carter on Stargate.
Oh, that was Lord Jarlo. Yeah, that was Londo's good friend. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about now. Yeah, and I think that was season 2.
Yes, because of what he did to Rifa, Londo took Rifa's family under his protection. It's his daughter is the woman in the who was minding the children in the beginning.
Right.
Maybe could be Rifa's some of Rifa's associates. Yes, I think Colin has it.
Yeah, Ursa Jado. Yeah, Colin, I think you got it, bud. So, yeah, and that's, I didn't also consider that because we haven't heard anything about Rifa or anybody in those for such a long time since he was taken out in season 3. That kind of, we kind of forget about, there's still people that are related to that particular house on Centauri, in the Centauri government, that would have a grudge against Londo, and realizing that he is he is going to be the new emperor and they want him gone. So yeah, I think your theory does hold. It's sound, very, very sound. So, but then of course that brings up the whole idea of Jakar becoming Londo's bodyguard. And I have to say it, and I've made this remark before, the comedic timing between Peter Jurassic and Andreas Consoulis as Londo and Jakar, it's delightful, for lack of a better term, because it's funny, it's thoughtful, it's layered, and neither one of them give an inch to the other, but they still have a lot of respect for the other, or they grow to have a lot of respect for the other. And that's something that I very much appreciate. So, and it's amazing to see the evolution
from day one.
Say that again, Lysium.
Sorry, I think my internet's cutting out. So if I'm, again, like I said to the chat, I may be talking over the ambassador. It is not my intention.
Oh, no. Elysium, I think everybody knows that. So go ahead, bud. I didn't catch what you said.
Okay. I think from day one, season 1, Peter Jurassic and Andrea Katsoulas had such amazing chemistry. It was lightning in a bottle.
It really was, because honestly, that is by far one. Yes. Absolutely, it was as our friends across the pond, y'all would say, it was spot on. It was right on the numbers. Just how well those two characters meshed, and how even though they were at times, very antagonistic towards one another, as time went on, they were able to rebuild their friendship to where it was, I think, honestly, better than it was before, because they had gone through so much together that they had a deeper understanding of who the other person was. And, it's an interesting thing. Whereas when you are in conflict, or you have a difference of opinion with another person, it can at times tear apart that relationship. But at the same time, if you're able to come to an amicable place with one another, it can be the bedrock for a very sound and very strong and very um, fortuitous relationship and friendship. And I think that's what Londo and Jakar had going throughout this series. And, ultimately seeing, you know, I don't, you see that clip early on in like season 1 or season 2 of the two of them as old men, and they're locked in combat with one another. They're choking each other, essentially killing each other. But you come to realize that for both of them, especially for Londo, it was a mercy killing. And we know why, because he was under the control of the Drock. And, Jakar had lived such a long time. He had seen so much go on. And I think he was at peace because he knew that his people were in a better place now. And they would be able to have a place in the future with the Interstellar Alliance. And that their kinship with one another, Londo and Jakar, would be a bridge, along with all the efforts that Veer puts forward, that the Centauri and the Narn would have a better future going forward than they had had in the past. And that, for me, is most definitely a strange relation, but I think it is...
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Elysium.
Sorry, there's something between the friendship between the two, even while under the control of the Drak, was in some ways the terminus of the cycle of violence. When Jakar was able to turn, it's like Irish history. It just takes somebody to say, you know what, and if you don't mind, I'll relate a family.
Certainly, go ahead.
It's what was told, true or not, it's the story that was passed down.
Mm-hmm.
My great-grandmother was, she was not involved in the War of Independence, but there was an action happened near her home. Mm-hmm. And British soldiers broke into her house, beat her up, mock executed her baby, dragged her outside, beat her, and set the house on fire. And then, while she thought, beating my house is burning my child, they then handed her the baby and, expletives deleted. And she could have held animosity, held anger, but she didn't. Mm-hmm. She just forgave and says, I'll move on. And that story wasn't only told to me a few years ago. The family just let it go. Now, had a hot-headed younger guys been told that, how would you feel about meeting someone who, not necessarily people who did it, but people, and the only way to let that go is to forgive. Even at that grave evil, you've got to let it go. And that's what Jakar did. And we see later in season 5, the Narn people are open to that, finally open to that, to letting go of that cycle of violence. And the Centauri pride would not let that happen. We can see that. They still tried to kill Londo. It will take the Narn people to forgive the break.
Yeah, because this also has an interesting parallel with what Fiona brought up in her video, the telepath war between telepaths and normals. And it's going to take one side or another to break the cycle of violence. I don't know who that ultimately is, because I never had a chance to read the novels there that detail that entire conflict. But I would imagine one side or the other is going to have to forgive the other for all the wrong that's been done. And I hope that maybe it's normals that end up breaking the cycle and saying, you know what, we shoved you in this box called Psycor. We treated you abominably. They treated you abominably. We treated you less than human, even though you are you are far more advanced than a normal human being. And, it kind of comes down to that whole dynamic that people fear what they don't understand. And that's simply the case here. Normal humans don't understand the abilities that telepaths have. And telepaths, being advanced genetically because they are telepathic, they have a harder time relating to normal human beings because they are different. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to get my hands on a copy of the Telepath War trilogy, or the books, the Psychor trilogy, because I'd really like to see how that whole conflict plays out. But eventually,
I know.
Go ahead, Lysium.
Sorry, there is a brief, like in one of the episodes in Crusade, there is, you see one or two moments telepath war. So you see the results that, like you mentioned, you like to think humans treated them mundanes treat the telepaths better.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually see that in Crusade, that he realized the mistake that was made. And we do know, we see it from the deconstruction of falling stars, that humanity doesn't seem to be divided along the line of telepath and
normal. Yeah.
It's still, the nastiest elements of right and left stuck against the people who just want to be people.
Exactly. So, but the one other thing I wanted to touch upon with this episode is Lyta and Byron's relationship and what actually no, because we've touched upon that already. The one other thing I did want to touch upon is Franklin being so open to the idea of being the head of the Insular Alliance's medical initiative, for lack of a better term. And, it really shows a lot of growth for Franklin, because I think if he was still stuck in the cycle that he had been back in season 3, he wouldn't have leapt so enthusiastically at this idea, but he realizes that he can do a lot more good heading up this initiative for the ISA than just staying in MedLab. If you remember his early history, he hitchhiked. He was a hitchhiker across the stars to kind of make reference to a favorite science fiction novel of mine and the movie adaptations of it. And
I think he discovered 42 was the then with the Babylon.
He very well may have.
I believe
he very well may have. But it speaks volumes to Franklin's evolution as a character, that he ends up delegating his responsibilities in MedLab to people that are capable of filling in for him, and him taking this step into doing something bigger than himself, to really helping humanity. And when I say that, I mean that in the all-encompassing sense of all the member races of the ISA, of the Interstellar Alliance. And I honestly, I really appreciate it. It was a small story moment and a small moment for Franklin, but it was a cool one. And especially it was good to see Jakar and Delenn working side by side on something like this. And you're seeing the foundations of the ISA really being laid here. And the one other thing I wanted to comment on is the whole issue of them having to deal with Bester because he is going through the proper channels and not being able to just it being like the Wild Wild West and say, well, you know what, screw you, you've screwed us over, we're not going to give you jack, so get the hell off of our station. If they had done that, it would completely undermine all the principles that the Interstellar Alliance stood for, and the fact that every member of the ISA still has autonomy. And Lockley says that to Sheridan point blank. And Sheridan's like, yep, all these good intentions are coming back to bite us in the ass. And he's not wrong. But at the same time, it's better to be ethical and deal with things down the road than to be unethical and just do whatever you like. But it says a great deal about them, about the characters being people of strong ethical behavior. So at least Sim, I think you were getting ready to say something. So go ahead.
I agree with you. Just going back on Franklin, I think he's realized he tried to help every individual. Now he realizes, yeah, I can delegate to people and I can most good by using my skills. Like you say, he hitchhiked on freighters. He's dealt with more alien races than any other doctor. So he's perfect for building the foundation that will help more people. And I think, and the ideal, and I like the idea, we have real idealists with Sheridan, Jakar, Delenn, that they believe it's better to set high standards. You always look up and try and achieve them. Then maybe Garibaldi and Londo are more, yeah, people are not like that. Let's just accept it's not going to happen and maybe try and do something later. That's a practical approach, but that is a foundation that can't last. It might get them over the first year or two easier, but it doesn't set anything that will last. Franklin, Delenn, Sheridan are building something that we see last in years.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a truly astounding thing that people that would regard in the future as literally just being conduits for other people to act through, and we see that no, that's not entirely true. So, and it's truly a fascinating thing to see. So, and shout out to the chat, our good friend, you know him, you love him, MB Geek of MB Geek. Let's talk. Good to see you, bud, and glad you could stop by. We're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes, but yeah, Elysium, you said it perfectly, and thank you for bringing that quote up. I appreciate it. I'll pop it up here if I can get StreamYard to cooperate. There we go. I'm caught in a web of my own good intentions. Sheridan, aren't we all? So, but yeah, it's better to have good intentions than to have none at all. At least that's my way of thinking. So, anyway, Elysium, go ahead.
Just one thing, I think I did like that. Was it Lockley and Garibaldi after the fight that she dumps him in the the brig, then leaves him in the brig after he finds out that she was married to Sheridan. End of the episode, she goes, "Oh crap, I forgot him." But just look in her face, she's going, "I'm
forgetting something. What is it?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm forgetting something."
Kevin, right?
Yes, Michael. Yeah. So, it just goes to show just how skilled a writer JMS is. So, well, anyways, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here for this afternoon / this evening. So, but I think I want to thank everybody that stopped by that and participated in the chat. As Elysium often says, and this is a sentiment I share, the show is just as much, you are just as much a part of it as we are. And we enjoy bringing you these reviews each and every week. We've been doing this for a little over a year and a half now, give or take. And it's been a very eventful and a very interesting ride. And we can't wait to see where this goes forward. and everything as we continue on. So I do want to let you know that I will be going live tomorrow evening with another installment of Ambassadorial R&D. I'll be bringing you all my review on the latest episode of Book of Boba Fett, and I'll also be giving my thoughts on episodes 1 and 2 of season 2 of the HBO Max series Raised by Wolves. And then, of course, Sunday night, I'll be back with my friend Brian Hill as we conclude our new Trek movie review series, and we'll be doing a discussion on Star Trek Beyond. And that, of course, will be at 8 p.m. Central Time. And, of course, we will be back. The council will be back next Friday afternoon, 3:30 Central Time, as always, with another installment of the Council of Ones. So we hope to see you all back here next week, next Friday. And of course, I hope to see a live view this weekend. So that being said, y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. I'll see you all this weekend. And until next time, this is the Council of One saying 3, 2, 1. Zooty. Zoot, zoot.
Zooty, zoot, zoot. Zooty.
Zooty.